It's great to be here. I think I shouldn't say anything after that introduction. But this is a great forum. I think great to see so many discussions regarding the future of skilling. I think for this topic, we'll focus on a lot of thoughts around building the pipeline for digital skills for organizations. Um, there were a couple of data points that I was looking at just to set context. I mean, a McKinsey report talks about 400 million skills getting displaced, roles getting displaced over the next 10 years, and being replaced with new digital skills and digital roles which will be different. And on the other side, as on date, there are 500,000 jobs in India in digital skills, where there are only half the volume of people available to fill those roles. Translating into salary inflation, dearth of digital skills, and all kinds of challenges that I'm sure all of us are working to solve. And I think we have a great panel across different industries, and it'll be a pleasure to talk to them and hear about their thoughts and how they solve some of these issues. On these two areas, new hire onboarding, hiring for digital skills and getting them productive, as well as talent mobility and how to manage internal workforce, getting them ready for new roles and new jobs. Let me start with Anil from FIS. And Anil, would be great to hear your thoughts on when you think about digital skills and digital roles. How do you think about hiring at scale and getting them ready for the kind of skills that the company needs?
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? So thank you. Happy to be here. I think the first thing to mention is define what digital skills means, because we use so many different terms: digital skills, emerging skills, so on and so forth. So typically, digital skills are skills which are part of emerging technologies that 10 to 12 of them we call the fourth industrial revolution, right? Sometimes it could be even in combination, like a blockchain with cryptocurrency or blockchain with something else. So first is identifying what those are, but how it's also important to understand how digital skills are different, because it comes with a combination of these different technologies. It's not like, if I take an IT view, it's not like training somebody on Java. A full stack is more detailed and complicated than, and then a DevOps engineer is so different. So the skills or input needed from capabilities are different. Therefore, the way we train them is not just purely technical. We need to look at, if we talk about going to a campus and hiring graduates, we need to look at their cognitive ability, their ability to collaborate, their ability to think, and also something called the learning quotient or learning agility, growth mindset. So it's fundamental. That's how it's different. It's a new technology, but the way it's a synthesis of different things they need to do. Therefore, the way you hire them, assess them is different. Therefore, it's a challenge. Obviously, the other challenge is what you mentioned in the introduction, the scale at which we need these number of new people with new skills. So I think that the combination is what makes it difficult. Those are my initial comments here.
Sure. Thanks, Anil. Going to Rajiv, I think maybe on the same subject, also in the context of, the scarcity of these skills and it becoming a challenge to hire people who are already job ready. Maybe if you could share your thoughts in terms of, how do you approach the twin problem of hiring at scale and then, deploying them for the jobs that you need.
Sure. So let's break it down, this problem statement, into the demand part and the supply part. That's where we'll be able to appreciate this entire issue better. So if you really look at last couple of years journey, we have observed that the acceleration of IT transformation really happened beyond the imagination, and that's primarily because of the pandemic situation, which did actually unfold. Second, if you really look at the entire industry across, it's not about only technology industry where we come from, but we are actually driving the technology. It's every other company's technology company today. You look at the manufacturing segment, you'll have some department which is actually driving the technology aspects, including the robotics, for example, to pharmacy, to any other healthcare, to any other segment if you talk about. Now, because of all this, what happened was the acceleration started happening from an IT transformation perspective as one. Second thing, this entire working model and the consumer supply chain also went into a major technology focused based approach post pandemic situation. Now that accelerated the demand automatically. Now when we talk about demand from a technology industry perspective, we started looking at complex skills at the same time, because you're dealing with different needs of the industry. At the same time, for example, the cloud adoption increased significantly from on-prem to cloud. At the same time, some of the skills which we did not even hear, Kubernetes, for example, container, layman will think container means a box, right? But container is a skill which came up. Now we're talking about the entire combination of vanilla skills with the front end, back end, digital skills to various other SDD, DevOps, and so on and so forth. Now that actually created different kind of problem for us in the technology industry. We were looking at supply from two angles perspective. One, to cater to the increased demand, and also two, from the fact that do we have people ready to deliver? Some of the customers who we sold some of the solutions, we sold them for the first time, and customer was also transforming some of those things for the first time because they had never done it. So one of the major customer who we have in logistics space was actually transforming the entire supply chain from a logistics perspective for the first time. So they did not know how to make that happen. And we also didn't do it earlier. So we got into that space and we won the deal. And here we have a problem to actually have the resources or people to deploy that. Now, how did we address that problem? We have not mastered it yet. We are one among various other technology companies. We started looking at this problem solution from two-dimensional perspective. One is, how can we create a culture of learning so that we have the continuous skill upgradation which is happening in the organization? And two, can we actually look at people from N-1, N-2 from a skill mapping perspective, and not just looking at, okay, we have a Superman available who will hire and make the things work. And that's where the transformation of the skill progression started happening. We call it hire, train, deploy, but we still have not reached where we want to reach. It's an employee market, a lot of challenges. We're still struggling both ways, hiring as well as retention. So these are our reality.
Yeah, Rajiv, some of the things that you mentioned, I mean, very interesting. In a lot of our interactions, one of the things that we hear is more this side: when companies have to hire digital skills at scale, they don't find the skills at all. And it finally boils down to hiring for aptitude. And then after that, having the internal training mechanisms to basically onboard them and get them productive. So very interesting. And especially the competition that you have IT service companies ramping up, product companies, startups, traditional businesses building large technology teams. So it's just getting crazy out there, and we need strong processes and funnels to basically address that demand. Raj Lakshmi, would love to hear from you on the entire, driving productivity part of it, and maybe a little bit about the different modes of learning coming together to deliver the right kind of results. That when you hire, how do you basically get the right output with the right combination of interventions?
Right. Is that on? Yeah. So thanks for the question. Let's take a step back, right? I think what everyone just spoke about, it is the true nature of where we are today. There is a skill gap, and there is a shortage of digital skills, because all of these skills, like we spoke about, transformation means that a lot of this is getting discovered on the go, literally. So no one has a real solution. And therefore, what we've done in the organization is to not look at, do we have an answer to solving for all the digital skills we need, because we don't even know what that list is today. We've looked at how is it that people need to learn today. How is it that organizations need to focus on capability building so that they are able to kind of meet the requirement of an ever evolving demand that comes basis what is happening in our client organization. So we're in an organization where we're constantly partnering with our clients to transform their front office, back office. So when we do transformation, they're constantly looking at evaluating new technology, and therefore the idea is about driving efficiency. So if it is working for them, then our people need to be ready to kind of support that transformation. And again, the other complexity over here is doing all of this at scale, right? We have 100,000 people or more actually right now globally, and all of them work on processes which are evolving almost on a monthly basis. So what we have designed in-house, it's been on for the last 3 years now, is a mechanism to really leverage the collective intelligence of the people in the organization. So the understanding is that to keep pace with the ever evolving change in demand of different skills, we no more have one expert pool, or we no more have one digital team that is going to drive the digital agenda. Everyone in the organization needs to have a digital mindset. Everyone in the organization needs to start picking up some bit of domain expertise and a lot of other skills that are going to make them successful in the future, which we call the T-shaped skills, right? So if you have to work in a hybrid organization, for example, how do you do it? If you have to work in a virtual platform, what are the behavioral aspects of actually being effective in a virtual environment as opposed to going to office before? The rules have changed, and if we don't understand that, then we, even if I'm the greatest chartered accountant, I will not be able to understand my client's need and really transform and deliver on it. So what we've designed is really an opportunity for our people to constantly have the option of learning in the flow of work. And this is technology enabled. Again, it's a product we've built which allows each employee in the organization to gauge and assess themselves literally every day to see, where do I stand today, what is it that my role requires me to do, and what do I need to build on to stay relevant in the future. And when I have clarity on my own gaps, there is a virtual learning coach which kind of guides me every day to say, these are the list of things that you need to do. Bunch of them are domain skills you're already good at. A bunch of additional skills are the T-shaped skills, like, learning how to work with agile, for example, learning how to work with different cultures in a virtual environment, soft skills, digital skills, industry skills, all of them come together and gives me a learning path to say, go learn. Now, because the skills are evolving constantly, we can't rely on a programmatic classroom based, approach. So because it's up to me as a learner today that I know these are my gaps and I want to be able to do it at my own pace and time. So I should be able to go do that. So the tool actually allows me access to learning anytime, anywhere. And it's a combination, like Kashyap, you just said, it's a combination because attention span of this new talent pool is only shrinking. So it has to be bite size, it has to be video, multimedia, it has to be self immersion of self study of content, clubbed with ability to interact and peer with your group and experts to kind of ideate, whether it's virtually or in person. Your ability to then apply that problem into a solvable task, which again gets peer reviewed, because we want to ensure that it is no more an aspect of one person giving us feedback, but the collective intelligence of the group giving me multiple avenues or multiple inputs of this to the same problem. And again, we just spoke about it, this is a journey we are on. It's only been about 3 years. The biggest challenge continues to be everyone really understanding how to use the product and making that successful. But yeah, it's a start.
No, thanks. It's very interesting. I think for the would love to go little deeper into the solutioning side of it. That while I think we've we have this problem and all of everybody's trying to solve it in different ways. But maybe Anil, going back to you, would love to understand that when from a talent mobility, from a creating those skills perspective, how do you? There are so many different interventions as. Lot of you have touched upon, but what kind of learning happens on the job, what happens through bite-sized learning, and where do you need more deeper interventions, which is engaging and bootcamp kind of interventions? Would be great to kind of just layer that a little bit, that there are like 5-7 different kind of interventions that are possible, but for what problem and what goal do you use what kind of intervention? Would be great to hear a little bit about that.
Sure. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? So we'll wait for your questions so you can pay attention to us. So I think when we look at hiring graduates, and keeping them job ready or ready for deployment. That's typically a boot camp. And the challenge we had over last couple of years was doing it virtually, right? Earlier we used to take these graduates from colleges and then train them 12 to 14 weeks, typically, or 8 to 12 weeks, physically at campus. Now we have to do it virtually. And when you go virtually, what are some challenges you face? How do we know they're engaging with the learning? And how do we assess them accurately? So some of the challenges we had to solve was tighten up the whole methodology of training and teaching, but focus more on outcome based. So after at the end of each module, we move to a proctor based assessment, so that we know they're not cheating, they're the right person who's supposed to take the assessment, and we by the results we know whether they are making progress or not. So shifting focus from a pedagogy more on outcome focus rather than anyway inputs we're doing the right thing. So that was critical. And tightening up the whole engagement, because there's this joke going around with all my HR colleagues saying when you change jobs, what happens in India? You end up getting another laptop from the new company you join with the same Dell or Lenovo, just the logo changes, nothing else changes. So imagine a graduate out of a college sitting at their home, haven't been to your campus. How do you create a sense of connect to the organization, make them feel the culture of the organization? And you don't have to share, but think of all the attrition numbers you have for your organization, actual numbers in your head, multiply it by 3 years. Almost 80 to 90% of your employees have refreshed. So whatever culture we think we have, it's already diluted. And imagine a new employee sitting at home trying to experience your culture. So it's not just wrapping them on the skills, doing it remotely, engaging them, and also giving them a sense of the culture. So that's where the whole pedagogy has to change. But I think the fundamental shift is adopting blended learning models and focusing more on outcome based. So if you have a 12-week boot camp, we would have a video proctored assessment every 2 weeks to actually know for sure they're making progress. And if they're not making progress, there's a course correction. We give them a 2 to 3 day of coaching, mentoring, and they have to take the assessment again to join back the batch. So those are the things we had to kind of tighten up with the whole culture piece, experiencing the organization. So bringing mentors from the team, project managers. So those are the changes from a bootcamp perspective. When you think of a lateral employee whom we're trying to upskill on digital, first thing you have to respect is their sense of time. So how much are they already loaded? So we can't say, hey, complete this 60-hour course in 3 months. We have to give them enough time. And then support with practice labs and mentors. It's very important. And manager, nobody can replace the manager, right? So if the HR and learning team is giving one message and manager is giving another message, it doesn't work. So reskilling, upskilling an existing employee is more difficult in my opinion, because they're working on the job and they're trying to do something else. And some people see it as an entitlement. The employee thinks, I'm already doing my work. Why should I spend extra hours to do this learning? You need to tell them that it's not entitlement. You are making them future ready. If they don't invest this time in themselves, they'll no longer be future ready. So they should not see this as a sense of entitlement, but actually a extended support from the organization to sustain their career. So different strategies which we had to try, hit and trial, to work for our culture and the organization and pace. And to sum it up, the organizations where I work, the boot camp for graduates is 12 to 14 weeks, and ramp up for an existing lateral employee in somebody who is experienced with 5 to 6 years, ramping them up to a full stack took anywhere between 4 to 8 months. Depends on the business units, culture, project. So you need to be flexible. One size does not fit all. Yeah.
Thanks, makes sense. Rajiv, would be great to hear a little bit about the on-the-job learning side of things. I think when we were catching up offline, you were sharing some of the best practices that have evolved over time, right? So how do you look at different on-the-job goals? That sometimes it is incremental learning, sometimes it is a little more transformative in terms of somebody adopting a new skill altogether. Would love to hear your thoughts on how you treat different cases.
So one of the things on the job learning perspective which we are trying to do is, I don't know if you heard about dev experience based learning. So what we are doing is we're trying to create the platform in a way that a developer, when the developer is working, is actually getting the experience from the platform itself, which means what kind of tools the developer needs to have. At the same time, when the developer is writing a code in a particular technology, what kind of support he and she would require to be able to write a better code. So we are trying to create the entire ecosystem, which is the next version of our learning transformation journey, where we are saying you need not to go to any L&D function, you need not to enroll for any certification, you need not to go for bite-sized learning program, etc., etc. It's actually on the job. When you have a platform for writing code, you have everything made available, so that you have all solutioning, all tools made available to you. You can leverage them for your better effectiveness as well as efficiency. That's where we're trying to get into from an overall excellence initiative, which we're driving from on the job perspective for technology folks in the organization.
Got it. No, that's very interesting, and I think a lot of times it also translates into having that role and skill architecture, that basically who needs what and exactly building the resources so that we are able to address that particular need. So really interesting to hear that. Raj Lakshmi, would be great to also, I mean, lot of the discussion when we are talking about digital skills, we talk about technology and getting into some of the new products and stuff like that on the tech side, but at the same time large part of the entire problem is also the business application and the non-tech roles actually getting comfortable with digital and adapting to, like in your case, automation and a lot of process changes that you touched on. Would be great to hear a larger perspective of digital impact on a very large organization.
That's actually a very important question, because most of us used to think that digital is going to be run by a digital team in a company, and which is the biggest mistake. I mean, it's the biggest confusion that an organization can be in, because the transformation and the digital transformation that we're talking about in any organization requires a mindset shift in the entire talent pool of the organization. So, for example, I'll just take an example. When we say that we are going to do robotic automation for client X, which means that as a result of that robotic automation, we will obviously drive efficiency. So what the work that was earlier getting done by 100 people will get done by 60 people. Now what happens to 40? Now that's not a problem that business can solve alone, unless the HR leader and the training leader and the business sit together and understand the implications of transformation and the digital transformation in a client organization. And what does that mean? I mean, that automatically requires the HR function or the talent functions to really think very, very differently in terms of what should be our talent strategy be. What are we going to do with these people who are going to be relieved of this role? How are we going to repurpose and redeploy and reskill them so that they continue to have a job in the future? The answer is not to fire people, right? The other thing is, as we are promising better and better and technology interventions with to our clients, if we don't move away from our traditional archaic ways of working, we'll not be able to support them at the speed and scale. So there is huge HR transformation happening in organization as we speak, and there is a lot of consolidation happening about on platforms, because at the end of the day, we may have the fanciest of technology, spend the maximum amount of money, but if we are not able to connect the dots to leverage the data that we are collecting on talent, from hire to retire, you'll never be able to deliver the business value to our CEO. So what does that mean? In talent today, the biggest skills, the most important skills for HR leaders, L&D leaders, training leaders today is understanding of data and insights, data analytics, right? Is understanding of how do you work on collaboration tools and methods which are online. Do you know how to use platform? Your learning agility is super critical, because we may be great HR professionals, but if we are not comfortable with, say, for example, Workday, and the organization decides to deploy Workday, I'll be completely clueless about what does that mean to my process, how do I drive implementation, and how do I really make the most of this platform. So I think it's a huge one. So to your point, uh, digital transformation requires a digital mindset and an openness for everyone and every function, and mostly enabling function. It doesn't come naturally, to really understand what this means for us and therefore what are the new skills we need to acquire. So that's been our focus as well in the organization, to say for every role today in the organization, there is a component of digital skills that is critical for the role, whether you're in HR, whether you're in training or in IT or in finance or anywhere. You have to compulsorily look at the critical digital skills. And it's also like when we look at key talent, when we look at top talent, of course, performance counts. But there's a huge emphasis on, are you learning the skills of the future to stay relevant and take this function to the next level?
30 seconds for adding what Rajlakshmi was saying. What my experience and belief is that the digital transformation from a learning experience perspective should not be driven by L&D folks. The strategy should come from the CT organization, because they understand what we are selling from a go-to-market strategy perspective to the customer. What kind of problem statements are we solving? And that's where they need to define that. They also need to help L&D to actually execute it. The execution should come from L&D, because that's where the synergy and people aspects, in terms of once you have given the experience of learning, thereafter people expects multiple things from you. One, the project. Your manager should be able to rotate you out. Two, they need career progression. You should be able to drive that. And third, they need better compensation, which is the biggest problem in our industry today, right? So all that aspect should be part of people organization, but the strategy should come from the CT organization.
No, I think that's a great point. I think maybe just one closing comment. One of the things that both of you touched upon in most digital transformation cases, what we've seen is that a lot of times what is spoken about is your data transformation, cloud transformation, and all of those units where you're creating that skill. But what is most critical is the digital awareness which happens en masse. And then the digital leadership training, that basically how do you, so at the base level, the skills that are created, and at the leadership level, those are the pillars, or that really drives success of the specific transformations that any company goes through. So I think very interesting to hear that. Thanks. I think we'll take a couple of questions from the audience, if there are any.
My name is Vaneet Kaur and I'm from Usha International. My question is that, with continuous learning, employees are building new skills because they would want new opportunities in terms of their career, new roles. But sometimes the organization structure somewhere limits it because they are not ready opportunities. So if you can share example, what companies have done to change their, org structure to facilitate employees gaining new skills and they're able to get new roles where they can implement it.
Should I take that one?
So we have a huge emphasis on redeployment, to your point, and I think it's important. It's not about whether we need to do it or not. I think the answer is yes, because all of us want to build on a career. We want to grow, and when you do a good job, usually the manager doesn't want to let you go because you're doing a great job, but that doesn't work in your favor. So as an organization strategy, it's important that we enable people to reskill and move. So, and it has to be part of policy, and that's the way it is run in our organization and a lot in the industry. So, for example, if you've spent more than 24 months in a particular role, you literally, as an employee, have the right to raise your hand and say, I want a role change. But then the onus of being eligible and prepared for that new role is on you. So whether you take advantage of the learning opportunities given and no one chases you, that's the other side, right? A very aggressive, excited, keen to learn employee will leverage all those opportunities and will grow. And then as an organization, we need to ensure that the manager enables that movement, and that happens by policy. But then, yeah, it's two ways. It is you want it, you get the opportunity, but you also got to put in the hard work and the additional work. It can't be that just because I spent 2 years, I'm ready to move, and that doesn't happen that way. Yeah.
Just more of a reflection of this. The good news is people are now willing to reskill and upskill themselves. That has really gone really well in last couple of years or so. The bad news is our managers still have their conscious bias of not letting people go, and that's where we failed. We have been failing as people function. How do we make that happen? It's still a big problem.
Yeah, I'll just just three things, just summing it up to add. First, you need a clear workforce planning exercise to see what roles are coming up. The whole conference is called Future Skills. So, what's the future view? Somebody in the organization needs to do it. It's not a gazing at a crystal ball. It's somebody's job. Somebody should do it. That's the first requirement. Second, you don't need to change org structure. You need a career framework. When somebody joins the organization, you're in role one, and what are the possible roles I can move? Horizontally, vertically, diagonally. We need to give the transparency view to the employee. That's the second piece. And third, you need support mechanisms. The whole investment in training, reskilling, so on and so forth. Different companies do it differently. You call it academy, so on and so forth. But if there's no view of what workforce you need to build for the future, and then there's no clear career path and no way to get there, those are the things we need to fix. That's not org structure, but maybe supporting organizational pieces. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think just one slightly different perspective I would like to share is more this, that I think the way the market is moving today, this is actually an imperative for all companies to solve, because if the company doesn't solve it, then the employees will solve it on their own. And I'll give you an example of that. I think Simplilearn as a business has a huge consumer side of the business where individuals come and take our programs to reskill in new technologies, new skills, and either the company gives them the opportunity to scale internally, or they, and that's the entire attrition problem that industry is facing, that either we are allowing people to scale within the organization, or people will figure out a way to scale in their careers, right? So I think that's a huge imperative for all companies.